Hey guys, Lord Sor here. So the Shadow Blood Wave build is getting a lot of attention this season, rightfully so, since it will most likely be the strongest build in flavor of Season 7 across all classes. Those who know me and been around my channel know this very well, that I have always been a very big Shadow Wave enjoyer, so I'm really hoping to be your go-to address for this build as I plan to deliver the best version of it. In reality, Shadow Wave has always been somewhat of a good build. It has been my favorite build since Season 1. Even looking back, I have released a guide for this AOZ back in Season 2, and in fact last season Shadow Wave was able to clear Pit Tier 112 and it was about the same power as Spirit Wave. However, it flew under the radar compared to other meta builds, even though it was just as strong. I could probably go beyond 112 if I continue to play and improve my gear all season. But overall, you are at the right address. This is the build I love playing the most, and I guarantee you that I'm going to be min-maxing this build to a T, delivering you the best version possible. So hit that like and subscribe button to stay in touch. We are about to surf up big time in Season 7. All the planners links will be down in the description, and additionally I'm writing the Maxroll written guide for this build on maxroll.gg. That should be out before the season launch, so once that is released I will post a link down below as well. It will have great amount of details on how to start and play this build, how to progress each step of the way from leveling to all the way to the end game pit pushing. Alrighty, let's dive into the build guide. Since the season isn't out yet, we'll be going through this via the planner, which will be also linked below. I know some of you might already be familiar with this build, especially if you're not new to my channel, so I apologize if some of the information feels repetitive. However, I will approach this as if you're entirely new to the build, as I know many of you are coming with a fresh perspective. For your convenience, I have added timestamps below for key tech sections. If you would like to jump directly to those, feel free. You definitely do not want to miss some of that coverage. Alrighty, let's jump into the planner. First of all, I want to show a few things about the planner. This will be the one that is linked below, and it will be also attached to the Maxroll guide. Once you get to the planner, you will have few variations here: starter, ancestral, mythic, speed farm, pit pushing. So feel free to check each of those depending on what stage you're at or what you're more interested in. You might not be interested in the speed farming, and that would be, I would refer to this one for example. But I'll be mainly specifically covering the pit pushing. I think this is the most crucial one out of all, and the build is actually super strong that even with one of these versions will be applicable to most content. Each of them will just have slight differences and will just play slightly different than each other. With that being said, I'm gonna start going over the pit pushing variant. Another few disclaimers about the planner is obviously skill trees here. Paragon, a lot of people get confused about this. There are steps in this Paragon to guide you through the Paragon journey. So the first one, we have only 200 points, for example. There are steps here. So when you first click and if you land on here and it says step 1 and there's only 200 points, that is by design. By clicking the step section, you can actually find a lot more information and how you can progress with this build going forward. There will be a mythic respec here to take more advantage of the Paragon exits and entrance because you will have more points, so he covers that, and obviously it covers the fully end game as well. And after this point, maybe I'll add another one down the line, but it's just pretty much picking up all the rest, intelligence nodes and then the blue nodes that we have. Alrighty, let's go over the gear. Our first choice is Perdition. It's definitely superior than Shaco. We do not actually need Shaco much anymore. The ranks are add some damage, but this one gives us a huge damage multiplier. It allows us to run crit chance and much easily crit capped, so we don't have to run grasping veins at all, and we can actually invest more into attack speed or other stats on our rings or other areas. So this is highly valuable. Obviously you want the GA critical strike chance and then triple masterwork that for the most efficiency. If you get Shaco early on, you can still use it. It will be quite helpful for the build in terms of cooldown reduction. So in the early stages, if you end up getting Shaco, don't think it's useless. It will be still good. You can still run it, but the end game absolute must have is a Perdition. Even last season, actually Perdition was superior than Shaco, and this season even more so because now we have Casimir's Legacy that already gives us a huge amount of cooldown reduction, so we actually do not need the cooldown reduction from Shaco, and the ranks, as they get diminishing returns, do not provide that much more damage compared to 60% multiplier. Shroud of False Death is definitely a must-have in this build, not early on, but if you want to get further in the pits, this unique is just so good. Mainly because we are a hybrid build, right? We are Shadow and Darkness and Blood. So what this allows us is to have additional passives, ignore all the stats, like all stats is great. The additive damage is insignificant. Maximum life is pretty important here. Resource generation is pretty useless, but the most important part is +1 to all passives. When you look at the tree, you're going to see we have shadow passives and we have blood passives. What this allows us to do is actually becoming another roughly about 50% multiplier now, because all the buffs some of the passives receive, and it buffs all the other damage passives as well. The crit chance, standalone is gets buffed. The memento mori is huge. You're gonna see down the line we're running sacrificial, that gets amplified by this as well. So a lot of these passives gets a +1, and it ends up being really good for this build. Next on our glows, we're running ultimate shadow. This is how we turn blood wave into a shadow wave, and this is unlocked. This just unlocks all and other additional damage multipliers for us. At a first look, damage here is totally insignificant. All that matters is that this gives us a darkness tag, turns into blood wave into a blood, and a darkness skill. Like I was just explaining, it helps us reach and access all these different shadow passives. Additionally, the sacrifice of reapers with additional 20% damage multiplier to our shadow damage. So all this combined, we really benefit from multiple different buckets, and when they multiply with each other, it turns into a much larger multiplier than any other damage multiplier aspect you can put here, which is actually great theorycraft. This is one of my favorite parts about this build, that it unlocks a different skill tag, and you actually can mix and combine different things on skill tree, even Paragon, and even sacrifices. On pants, the new pants, Casimir's Legacy, this is just great. Totally changed the gameplay. Actually one of the main reasons why Blood Wave is going to be so strong now compared to last seasons. They travel faster now. The waves itself, they travel half a distance, makes the animation much more gameplay friendly and much more efficient in terms of speed farming or pit pushing. It has a huge multiplier on it. It has a really significant amount of double. The blood wave deal double damage. Compared to last seasons, we would have to triple or double masterwork our chance for blood wave to deal double damage, but this pants solves that. We are easily, early on, even early gameplay, we're gonna be able to reach 100%, which is gonna be a significant damage boost. On top of that, it has a really high cooldown reduction, which allows us to easily not run Shaco now, and we're gonna be able to actually hit the cooldown cap very easily because of this huge value, especially if you get GA with triple masterwork. Quick disclaimer on this, obviously here I'm covering the pit pushing, right? And you may say, man, I can never hit triple masterworks, and how is that gonna work? Are you just building based on that? The answer is no. This is obviously the try hard, sweaty setup, what you strive for towards the end game, what you continuously improve for. This is your North Star guide. However, like I mentioned, I have a lot of other versions here. For example, you can go to Mythic version, and this is much more casual friendly. It actually covers only double masterworks, and it actually, considers the fact that you may never get to hit triple masterworks, so that this is more designed towards that scenario, and you should still have a lot of fun and should still be very functional in all the content you can do. So just a quick disclaimer on that. But I think it's fitting to cover the pit pushing here for majority of the audience here, as this is your North Star, this is what you wanna go for eventually at the end game. But yeah, these are the pants. It's gonna be great. This also totally solves the fortify. It just fortifies it for you 85%. It's a huge amount, so it opens up some passives points, skill points here to put on other places. So that is also a really good bonus of these pants. On boots, we are running Exploiter's Aspect. Each of these variants of the build will slightly have different aspects. For example, speed farming will have metamorphosis, highly important to stay unstoppable and travel faster. But on the pit pushing, the Exploiters is definitely the most important one, because this is a Blood Wave build. If you notice one thing, Blood Wave is amazing at inflicting CC and staggering monsters and elites. So you're gonna be making monsters go unstoppable very frequently, and when they go unstoppable, you are gonna get another 45% huge damage multiplier. This does not work on bosses, but try it, you will see it will significantly improve your clear speed. This also randomly snapshots sometimes. I am still testing this and I will keep you guys posted if that has been changed or still the case in season 7. However, sometimes you will activate this and it will be active rest of the pit run. So it's very important, it's very good. It's definitely a very important damage multiplier that you can get it on your boots. So it's a really big plus in my opinion. On our amulet, we are going to be running Sacrificial. I will cover this down the line. There's a new aspect that gives you damage to ultimates. I'm going to break down the math for you why I'm going to be running Sacrificial over that. Sacrificial on amulet is actually 91% damage multiplier. There will be section later on as well. It's covering that why it is 91 instead of 83. So we'll cover that as well. That will be timestamp below when we go into more breakdown stuff, more explaining the calculations overall to justify my decisions here. But this amulet is crazy. I understand this might be quite hard to get. Quality Blood is the most important one, mainly because how the rank 5 has changed. I will cover that as well in a bit. But if you cannot get Gloom, you definitely want to get Quality Blood and Tides of Blood. And if you cannot get Gloom, you can get intelligence percentage here, which should be also very good. I can already hear you asking in the comment section or in your head maybe, what's the most efficient masterworking on this, right? Is it as straightforward as just tripling Quality Blood or just tripling Tides of Blood? There is no short answer for that. If you just follow my planner and if you have 1 GA, what you're seeing on the screen is the most efficient masterworking. This will give you the most damage output, but I will have a dedicated section in this video as well, just covering this. So I'm going to run multiple scenarios of what's a better masterworking depending on your stat sheet. And hopefully I'm actually going to be releasing a calculator for this season. So you can come to that calculator, you can insert your damage values, and then that will kind of give you the most efficient masterworking. So please stay in touch for that. But in the meantime, this video should get you started really well. And if you follow my guide, this is the most efficient, most damage masterworking. 5 if you have GA. So you want to divide them into 5 and 5, and because this is mainly just because of diminishing returns. But I will break this down for you in the later section. Going down, we have Damned aspect here. It's going to give us another 50% damage multiplier. Surprise, I am not running Fastblood on the pit pushing variant of this build, because I simply think it is not needed. And like you can see, there's no Fastblood here. The build has changed. All the other variants, you do run Fastblood for a little bit better gameplay experience. But for the most damage possible for the pit pushing, Fastblood causes you to lose DPS in the long term. It gives you a little bit more quantity, but not the quality of the waves damage hit. And that's what we're gonna prioritize first. And if we get so strong that it turns into speed farm, I will have a build planner for that as well down the road. But for now, no Fastblood on this build. And the reason is now Tidal has an animation lock, so you cannot even cast Blood Wave back to back anymore, even if you reset the cooldown immediately. So the goal is to rely on Decrepify procs, rely on cooldown reduction on gear to reach cooldown cap, and overlap the animation of Tidal with Blood Wave. So all you need is the wave downtime to be the same as animation of Tidal. And this gives us a good opportunity actually, and makes the gameplay better in my opinion. You have this downtime of Tidal animation, your damage is still going out. Tidal is still producing waves for you. In that meantime, you can consume corpses to activate Flesh Eater. You can consume blood orbs to reset Ratmus Vigor. And additionally, you can do other things to proc Decrepify and reduce the cooldown. So there's a mercenary tech actually that allows us to really reset the cooldown. If you didn't know, mercenaries can proc Decrepify hits, which you're gonna see here. This is my pit pushing mercenary setup. It's different for each of the planners if it's related to content. But here you can see the reinforcement. We are running Altkin. This flame surge is crazy proccing Decrepify. When this goes off, you will see your cooldowns dropping rapidly, and you will be casting corpse explosion, so they're going to be proccing lucky hits. Tidal waves themselves will proccing lucky hits, so you'll be proccing a lot of lucky hits in that time frame to reduce the cooldown. And this only has 11 seconds cooldown. It's very, very low, and it only has uptime of 50-60% roughly. So it is a very, very important tech, and I'm actually gonna display a gameplay footage of this from PTR and how it worked and why it is gonna be the way in my opinion. On the other ring, this is my aspect of choice. It has a slightly less multiplier compared to Great Feast or Grasping Wains, and this also actually got nerfed. It's now actually 2 additional ranks instead of 4. However, I find this quite important, and when you do the math, it actually ends up being 41-42% multiplier with the added skill ranks. So it's slightly less only, but what it does is that it sheds off additional 3.5 seconds from your blood wave, which I think is quite important when considering that we are not running Fastblood. But this is my flex spot. I'm gonna be experimenting this throughout the season, try other options to see if there's more damage, and depending on how the cooldown feels in the end game. But feel free to experiment yourself as well. So far, this is my choice, and I think it makes sense. One important thing on this ring is a lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable. This is how you're gonna make enemies vulnerable. They're gonna be vulnerable pretty much all the time. This is quite of a high value. If you're gonna get 1 GA, this should be your choice. And this sort of covers all the gear and aspects. Let's talk about the rune setup. I think it's quite important here. First one, we are running Zan Watt RuneWords combination. This is making, when we cast ultimate skill, we automatically proc Decrepify, and horrid Decrepify indeed. One thing this does is that, first of all, it's an action economy. You do not have to manually cast Decrepify, and if you actually are not able to keep your Decrepify on targets, you're gonna lose a lot of the DPS just because you're losing Damned, you're losing Frailty from your Paragon. So keeping targets cursed is very important. What this allows you to is that makes the gameplay a lot easier. You don't have to worry about it. Another thing is that this executes targets, so it actually significantly clears your clear speed, especially in pit pushing. And another thing it does is that when you run this, you don't have to have Decrepify on your bar. But how does that increase our damage? Well, Reaper Pursuit is now different. For each darkness skill on your action bar, gain increased movement and increased damage. So 4 ranks into this, 4 times 8, 24% damage multiplier, because now we have Blight, and Blood Wave is now a darkness skill. We have Blighted Corpse Explosion, and we can put Decompose here. So now we have 4 darkness skills on our bar, which also boost our damage by additional 8%, just because now we can run 4 instead of 3. So that's actually very, very valuable in the setup. Obviously, in addition to all the other perks that it brings to you by executing enemies, increasing clear speed, keeping your curses up at all times. So for me, this is very, very important combination when it comes to pit pushing for this build, because it also saves you a cast time. It saves you one or maybe a additional cast you might have to do to clear that trash. So it helps a lot. Another thing is that you may see a lot of people do curse touch on the boots. That is simply the same idea here. So that opens up a rune slot and opens up a skill slot. However, I think Exploiters is too valuable here for another clear speed. It's another 45% damage multiplier that is on top of your all the other multipliers. So that is my reasoning beyond Zanwad. I think mathematically this makes the more sense, but it's also a preference at the end, and there could be different ways of doing this and playing this. Another rune combination, Igni, is the new rune. Actually, when I tested this in PTR, it was significantly really good generator. And the way we played the build is right, like it stores essence, it stores offering at all times. So when we have that animation lock with the title, the damage is going out. What you do is you walk around, pick up a little bit blood orbs, and you keep casting corpse explosion to activate Flesh Eater. Whenever you cast corpse explosion or blood wave itself, or corpse tendrils maybe to pull, this gets activated and gives you a huge amount of offering. Our goal with this build is to ensure that each cast of our wave is gonna be with Cax rune. So it's gonna activate that double the damage multiplier. So that's what we are focusing on. In that down period, we activate all these buffs and make sure that before our next blood wave cast, we're gonna cast with the Cax. You have to pay attention to buff bar a little bit. This may get some getting used to, but I'm also gonna probably do a really good tutorial on this video to guide you how to play it very effectively. Probably not in this one, because this one is gonna be already terribly long. So I think the skill tree is pretty straightforward, but we have the compose here, just putting 2 points. You will actually see me casting the compose. I personally think this is a very, very good tool to have to group enemies or aggro them from distance. If you watch my gameplay from last season, actually you will see me cast a lot of Decompose, so you will see how I use it to kind of group enemies, and it's actually very, very efficient. So I will link that gameplay down below. It's going to be very, very similar in terms of that. We have Hue Flesh to generate corpses. We have Blight. We're going to be using this for sure on the bosses, especially to get another 20% multiplier. It's also a darkness skill, like I said, Reaper's Pursuit here. But buffs our damage a little bit more. We have Blood Mist. It gives us another damage multiplier and a crit chance when we exit, so you can use it in your rotation. We have all these valuable passives here to hit the caps and then get additional damage. We have Corpse Explosion. With Blighted Corpse Explosion, this helps with Decrepify procs. Like I said, no Fastblood, relying on Decrepify. And we have Fueled by Death to get another damage multiplier. On moving down the line, we have Death's Embrace, classic tree here with the Decrepify. We have Abhorrent Decrepify, and from the rune we have Horrid Decrepify, so works both ways. And we have Tides of Blood, huge. Colossus Blood, huge multipliers. We have Tendrils to generate extra blood orbs laying around, which also helps to reset Ratma's Vigor timer here. And then we have our Darkness skill passives. We go on to the next tree. We take this to hit crit cap. We have take all these passives to improve our damage. And obviously Blood Wave and Ratma's Vigor. This will be 15 seconds now instead of 12. And it's going to give us flat out 120% multiplier over power damage. Paragon, without going into too much details, I'm going to have a later section to break this down as well. However, make sure when you check the planner down and below to check out the steps. This is going to really guide you through each step of the way as you progress through the end game. Biggest change here is actually now we're running Imbiber here compared to last season, and obviously we're taking Flesh Eater as well, but this gives us huge amount of damage while healthy, and also damage while healthy multiplier. Later section again, I'm gonna break this down for you. There's undaunted option for damage while fortified, but I did the math on it. It's actually better to run essence instead of that. So we'll display all that, and without going into too much detail here, make sure to check out planner and see how the Paragon feels for you. And again, as a reminder, the steps are here. So yeah, that covers the most of the important things. Additional ones are Abyssal is really good here because you have this huge damage while fortified rare node. Sacrificial is really good at BBB board because now you have these damage while healthy and it boosts them. So little tricks and text here and there. So yeah, more info on this in a bit more section with the spreadsheet. I'm just gonna break it down why I set it up this way. Talking about seasonal powers as well, we have the 40% overpower damage to hex enemies. This is down to 15% now, but I think it's still one of the better options. Other one is when you have 3 growth and decay slotted, you have 8% primary stats and 10% maximum life. So overpower build equals more damage. And the last one, actually the most important one, while you have an aura active, your ultimate skills gain witchcraft tag. In Bloodwave becomes an eldritch tag. And what this does allows us is to run this one. Here is gonna give us another multiplier to our Bloodwave, and this will reach 40% and work against all monsters in the end game. So it's very, very valuable to run this one, and this is the most important witch power, I would say. We're running Tornado. Obviously we can never get enough pools. We'll experiment other ones, but all the damage ones seems relatively insignificant compared to a utility like this. And we are running Aura Spellization, makes auras larger. We are running Soul Harvest. This actually stays on you and it actually gives you so much more intelligence. It's actually crazy. And totally, and then you can go to like boss with 65 stacks or something. It's crazy. Hex of Whispers. Really good. Just removing all the crowd control and negative status effects is very important just because there's tons of CC in the pits. And this is Aura of Siphoning, which gives us a little bit more healing based on our maximum life. We have to run 3 growth and decay to activate this one. So that's kind of the trick and puzzle piece you have to solve with witch powers. But this is what I have so far going into season 7. This is probably will be subjected to change as I play and experiment with these powers more. Alright, favorite part of the video for you is an Excel spreadsheet here, and to justify and show and give more insight on why I made some of the choices. The first one, why Sacrificial on AMULET compared to other aspects. So you'll see here when you put Sacrificial, this is sort of the calculation. It applies to different sacrifices separately, becoming multiplier that multiplies with each other, so it ends up being actually a larger value, mainly because of we are a hybrid build, so it becomes 1.91% multiplier on AMULET compared to what you may suggest you may have want to do is damned on AMULET, which would be 83%. So obviously Sacrificial is sort of a winner here. And another one you might want to consider is Apogeic, the new aspect, which is nerfed. So every time you cast, there's a ramp up to it. So actually running this, you will initially get 15, you'll get 30, 45, 60, blah, blah, blah. Up until this point, Sacrificial is better. So you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 cast to actually get the benefit you're getting from Sacrificial at all times. Because the build has a lot of timers, Cax, Flesh Eater, Tidal, I personally for now prefer running straight multiplier that is active consistently at all times. And when you do the average and the math, actually Sacrificial becomes more DPS. So that is my reason why I go with Sacrificial over other aspects on the AMULET. Alright, let's talk about the rank 5 calculation, which is going to be another way of scaling Bloodwave's damage through the moon, through the sky. And this was the main reason why Bloodwave was so strong during PTR, because the way this rank 5 formula worked, but now it is different. So I had another video doing the deep dive on this, so I will link that down in the description. Won't go into that detail. However, I want to show this part mainly. This is gonna be the maximum amount of values I am going to get from various resources. You see the glyphs names, you see passives and gear, so on and so forth. So damage while fortified, this will be your stat sheet value. And actually the formula directly takes your stat sheet value. Stat sheet value in some cases, in most cases, does not mean the accurate, does not represent accurately, but in this case it does. So there's that confusion. Hopefully it's not as confusing. But so yeah, this will whatever you will get from damage while fortified. I have done the math, so I was actually comparing between Undaunted with a different glyph. When we don't have Undaunted here, how much this go down, so on and so forth. This will be my end game stat sheet goal, which I believe is gonna give the maximum value. We're not running Undaunted, so it's 0 here. We're gonna get some from Abyssal for the damage while fortified. We're gonna get about roughly around 900. So early on, maybe I didn't touch on very clearly, we are going to be tempering damage while fortified everywhere. However, we're not gonna masterwork them compared to PTR. It is no longer it is no longer as strong as maximum masterwork and maximum life. To clarify that a little bit better, I think I rambled down a little bit too much there, but we still temper damage while fortified on our gear, but we no longer masterwork. We no longer try to make it triple hit. Maximum life is a better option when we as a stat to masterwork on our gear. And like I said, I will have this public at some point, and I will improve this. It's a little bit messy right now, and I will have a calculator. So during the game, you're progressing, you can come and plug these numbers in, and then you can kind of find out yourself what's a better masterwork option for you, because this can also change depending on your gear because of the variance, because of the maximum life and how the additive bucket will work. This will impact that. So I think calculator for the long run to help the majority of you out there will be better help than just kind of giving you a rough idea, because each setup can slightly different from each other. Total other damage while fortified sources and blue nodes and rare nodes and so on and so forth, we get 250. Roughly we'll get this value. And for the damage while healthy, we'll have Imbiber, Sacrificial, and Aha. The most important thing I want to talk about here, Chalice of Blood and Imbiber will actually multiply and kind of like inflate the stat sheet here, which is why Chalice of Blood and Imbibers are very important. That's why Chalice of Blood is almost more important passive than Tides of Blood now, just because it's gonna increase our stat sheet value, which then is gonna turn into a new multiplier here. But there's also diminishing returns. That's why early on in the gear section you have seen 5 ranks into Chalice of Blood and 5 ranks into Tides of Blood. So it's not as simple as just, oh, okay, let's make this triple masterwork, which then if this GA will be 1.66 instead of 1.54, but we'll break that down in the following section as well. But this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to strive for. And this is what my stat sheet is going to look like. And this is how the planner is designed for you. So even this is too much for you, you don't care about all this bumbo jumbo and all this level of min-maxing, the planner will just serve you right. But behind the scenes, this is what's going on. This is what I have done to justify my selections. And I will continue min-maxing this. I will continue experimenting this. And I will keep you guys posted, of course. Ideally, in Season 7, this is what roughly, rough math, hopefully I'm very close, but things can change a little bit in the formula. You never know. But this is the value that we're going to see our Blood Wave skill damage, the weapon damage that you see next to the skill. This will be what we are going to see. This is what I saw during PTR. This was the damage multiplier on PTR. You could get actually 250 as well, but realistically, this is what I saw in PTR, and this is what I plan to see in Season 7 with the formula adjustment. And I have a video on this. If you are curious, I will, again, link will be in description. All right, talk about a little bit more details and dive deeper into the calculations. If you temper blood overpower on your gear instead of damage while fortified, this is what you sort of get from your additive bucket. And you can see the difference is huge. So the damage while fortified obviously is still the clear winner. And you are able to see this multiplier, rank 5 bonus, that is going to add it onto your blood wave is going to be almost 8.5 compared to 5.7. So damage while fortified tempering is still the winner. However, let's focus on here. What about masterworking? When you masterwork max life, I'm talking about triple masterworking here, and elixir is active, you are getting more damage value compared to masterworking damage while fortified. So that's the difference here. Early on, I mentioned I'm going to be running essence glyph instead of undaunted. And this is the difference here. You're seeing essence is actually much more valuable because of, that undaunted bucket is getting kind of inflated, so it's getting diminishing returns. But when you put essence, you get some value to your crit damage additive, and then you get two big multipliers from the essence glyph itself actually. So it's a more of a winner here. All right, let's break down the amulet masterworking. This is going to be a very key factor when we are min-maxing our damage. And I have run some scenarios here. I have run more than this, but I have kind of summarized this. But again, reminder, I'm going to, I think, put out a calculator out for this so you can actually play around yourself as well. But amulet masterworking is not as straightforward as you think. A lot of people, I think, will fall into the trap of saying, oh, Coalesce it multiplies your damage while healthy and improves your stat sheet, and then the rank 5 bonus, blah, blah, blah. So GA Coalesce and triple masterwork is going to be like kind of a trap that a lot of people, I think, will fall into. However, I wanted to show that here. If you do that, this is marked in red, this is your damage. But turns out the most damage is gonna be 5 tides, 5 coalescent, and 3 gloom. So if you have, like, depending on which one you have GA, obviously you will see you will have to masterwork differently. One twice, another once, or just 2 into tides and 1 into coalescent, or 2 into coalescent and 1 into tides. This is mainly because of diminishing returns. It ends up being 5 tides, 5 coalescent, 3 gloom is the more damage. This is a reasonable scenario. If you find an amulet like this is a reasonable scenario to only with 1 GA. So wanted to make it more realistic. If you get more GAs, obviously you will get more damage, and this is gonna be the ideal scenario where you have maybe tides and coalescent GA. What you want to go for is 6 coalescent, 5 tides, and 3 gloom. So if you can find an amulet with coalescent and tides and you can run gloom on it, then you're golden. This gives us the most damage. However, you can see kind of the numbers are very, very close to each other. This is like obviously very end game level min-maxing, but I wanted to throw this out there because I believe a lot of people will ask this question: what do I masterwork? What's more valuable on the amulet? But if by the first look, it might look like tides or it might look like coalescent. A lot of people might just say triple masterwork the coalescent, and you may spend so many mats into doing that, and you may not even get the max value out of it because of diminishing returns and how it's calculated in the background. So I wanted to give this snapshot to you, the calculation to you, that don't worry about it too much. If you get an amulet like this, it is just great. You can see the difference is somewhat small, and you can't go wrong with each of them. But don't just sweat too hard to just get triple coalescent GA masterworking this and that. You will just be wasting time pretty much. Another thing is obviously int. I think I have to look into this a little bit more because there are timely int. Like your intelligence will go up as you are in more combat, so it's a bit harder to compare. I in fact put intelligence instead of gloom on my mythic version, but I still strongly believe that Gloom is a better option when it comes to like if you just want the God tier amulet. I have done more calculations and combinations than this obviously, but I didn't want to just throw it all at your face with lines of Excel spreadsheet here. But like I said, I'm gonna try to have a public calculator for this. I think it's gonna be the most beneficial one, where you can come back anytime and play around and plug in your numbers, because your numbers will slightly be different than what I have on the planner. I try to keep it as realistic as, you know, multi variant version of it as well, but can only do so much. So I think this will be very helpful. So make sure to stay in touch for that. Again, reminder, like and subscribe. I'm really I really love this build, so I really want to min-max and provide the best guide and best version out there possible for you guys. If you made it through the whole video, thank you so much. All the links are in description. Timestamps are marked, and I'm currently finishing up the full written guide for Maxroll, which will be published soon and just in time for the season launch. As I wrap up the video, the background footage you're watching here is from PTR. This gameplay does not include any rank 5 scaling, so no broken mechanics from PTR or Fastblood. As I mentioned earlier, to demonstrate how the build works despite the nerfs and despite not getting the cooldown from Fastblood, explaining my choice why I am going this route. And this, I think, boss fight is a solid example of the build still performing efficiently under these conditions. It should give us a rough idea how it will play when the season drops, and once the season launches, I will be releasing a lot more gameplay footage to show how it evolves and how it plays, and maybe even I will even do more tutorials on this with how to play with runes and so on and so forth. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or need clarification on anything, please leave a comment below. Stay tuned for more videos. Lord Sora here. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one. Cheers.